It was a nice day outside, especially just after a week-long storm. I had spent almost every Saturday in my local games shop. Slackers, the place was just local, I think. I hadn't seen any other stores. The shelves had always had newly stocked to check out. They even had music sections that I would occasionally browse. The owner of the store was pretty nice, at least 30 or so, pretty laid back, and I had just gotten a Game Boy Color, which was a bit later since its release, 2000. So I went as usual to buy the Game Boy cartridge section. There was an interesting cartridge on the top of every shelf. I was only 12, so I couldn't quite reach it. So I found a stool that was kept somewhere there and was finally be able to reach it. The cartridge was so hard to take off the shelf, almost stuck on there. After about 30 seconds of prying it, it finally broke off. The cartridge still intact. The cartridge had no label, just simply written in Sharpie, free. I basically just shrugged and asked the owner about it. "Is this game free?" I asked with a surprised look. The owner took it away from me and then just shrugged as he saw the label. "I guess it is," he said, then handed it back to me and then went back to reading his magazine. I put the cartridge in my pocket as I began my usual round around the new stock. With all the new stuff, Pokemon, Kirby, stuff like that, I realized I couldn't buy anything anyhow. I went home, and all the way home, I was strangely intrigued by the blank cartridge. I was all ready for anything. When I got back to my room, it was just all it was left. A typical 12-year-old's room, Spider-Man posters on the left, and right supplies ready for school on Monday, and my old Game Boy Clear on the bed. I jumped back into bed and popped the cartridge in. While loading, I expect some crappy game to never took off. The menu looked as if it was an 8-bit field of grass, a setting sun in the distance. There was also no title, it was just big bold letters, start. I pressed start and almost instantly placed flat on plane. The sun in the menu was now at the very top of the screen. My character had a hat and a t-shirt on. Pretty pixelated, I began to walk forward towards with the arrow button and soon encountered a block. I touched the block and it instantly died. I was taken back to the menu. During the next game I played, the sun seemed to be lower, about 1 pixel. I figured that A was the jump, so I could jump over at first the block that killed me. The same process happened for about a minute. Finding a block, then jumping over. I encountered a pit while it was just 1 block wide. Seeing no challenge, I jumped. I hit some sort of invisible wall and fell to the pit. I pressed the start button on the menu and the sun seemed to be about 3 or 4 pixels lower. Nothing too odd. It just unnerved me a bit, and I arrived at a pit, which it seemed to be one I came earlier. The closer the pit I got this time, the feeling of it felt accomplished. After a bit of walking, I came across a sign. The sign was very detailed for a Game Boy Color game. The game told me to press B to read the sign. "Don't let the sun set." The sun set by what I noticed, and it had been setting for more than each game. I wondered what would happen if you let it set without completing the game. I just touched the block over and over again. Each time the sun was setting more, and the sun was getting darker. My heart was racing. I felt so ridiculous, which was a mistake. The sun finally set, and the screen almost was pitch black. I touched a block and died again. The next time I played it, it was a broad daylight in the game. I just began to walk and walk and walk. I seemed to have been interested in absolutely nothing. I felt myself getting absorbed into the game as I was just walking. So one day the world blacked out and I was placed in the game store and waited to be picked up by a kid again. I was picked up and played, interesting kid. So I was walking when I ran into a block and then died. The next kid suffered the same fate, but I felt a decade-long spell being lifted as he did so. I was free, so that it made me wonder. I am nothing but some sick and twisted game, doomed to walk on the plane for the rest of my life. Doomed to pick me up, and cartridges and game shops? Maybe it's not bad. Taking a walk sounds nice, doesn't it? And that, my little pretties, was Simple Game, a creepypasta written by Beankins. My final thoughts on this story? Not a bad creepypasta. I mean, I didn't think this one was a bad one, but this one kind of left me a few questions. Like, one of them being, there's really no explanation to what game that the protagonist was playing. Like, we barely get any information regarding what game was the protagonist playing. Like, there's basically, this, you're basically walking on screen and then you suddenly touch blocks, die, or something. I mean, it doesn't really explain what kind of game was the protagonist playing. What I would like, the game to do is maybe this pasta can explain what game the protagonist was playing. Because that way, that would make more sense, but it would also help out with the story. Like, this gives us a lot of, questions as to what game the protagonist was playing. Despite it being a short story, I still find the grammar to be, pretty good, especially with how the story is written. And I could definitely say it's a pretty good one. So, I guess with that being the case, and with that being said, the story's not too bad. Could use a little of improvement. The only main issue with the story is that we don't really know what game the protagonist was playing. So, it just dumps a bunch of questions regarding that. I really wish the game would, go on and explain what game it was playing or something. Because that way it would help us explain, it would give us more better idea as to what happened. But not only that, that would definitely help us out as to, what game was the protagonist playing. When I'm seeing where I'm coming from. I may not be making any sense, but yeah. This is on the regular Creepypasta Wiki if you're wondering where I got it, so you are free to go take a look at it and read it for yourself. I remember Silver Stories narrated this one as well as Seabass, so while I could say their narrations are good, and while I could say the story has a somewhat of an interesting concept in that, but it doesn't really go too deep into detail on what game the protagonist was playing. That kind of, leaves me to wonder what games were they playing? Were they playing like a Pokemon game? Were they playing like a Mario game? I really wish that maybe the cartridge game, even though if it didn't say what game it was in, I really wish the protagonist, would have gone into detail explaining, what the game is about in that and what type of game they're playing. Because that way, that would help out with the story a lot more. But that way, it would just not just dump a bunch of questions there. If you see what I'm saying. I probably may not be making any sense, but maybe if you guys happen to read the story, maybe you can leave me your thoughts on that in the comments below. But other than that, it's not a bad gaming pasta. Not perfect, but not terrible either. Like I'm to say, this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas or gaming pastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 7 out of 10. Well, I can say the concept seemed pretty interesting, and it does have a pretty good startup in that. The one cliched about, the cartridge being sold for free at a game store, I'm willing to excuse that because, while I can say it seemed interesting, but the blank cartridge and the fact that the story doesn't really go into detail about what game the protagonist was playing or what game it was in there. I mean, if the game was, somewhat described about what it's about in there, that would help us out a whole lot. But, that's just how I think that could have been improved in the story personally. Other than that, it's not a bad story. Anyways, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better. Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're new to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.